What's up, guys? Hey, this is Christian Brindle with Six Figure Medicare Agent. Hope this video finds you doing well. And I have a guest that I'm so excited about. I've been waiting all week and looking forward to this interview. I have Danielle Roberts here with me today from Boomer Benefits. Danielle, how are you?
I'm terrific. How are you doing today, Christian?
I'm doing awesome. Thanks. So for those of you who don't know Boomer Benefits, if you're in the Medicare business and you don't know Boomer Benefits, you probably are living under a rock somewhere. But Boomer Benefits, you guys have done such an amazing job at building up such a really remarkable organization from everything I understand about it. And the brand that you guys have built is just something that I think all insurance agencies should aspire to be like. And so thank you so much for taking the time again. I mean, this is really a treat.
Oh, that's so nice of you. My pleasure. I'm happy to do it.
So Danielle, for anybody that might not be familiar with Boomer, might not be familiar with you and your story, talk about how Boomer started, how you got into the business, and kind of how we got to where we are today.
Okay. First can say we're not anything different or special in any way to grow an agency like ours. We probably do a lot of the very same things that any of your agent listeners out there are trying. And for me, I worked in staffing for 10 years after graduating from TCU, and I was burnt out and I was looking for a business to start. So, my brother and I, we were entrepreneurial kids. We were always coming up with schemes to make money in our neighborhood. And my parents are blue collar. We subscribe to a blue collar work ethic. My dad had a number of businesses. Probably the most successful one was running an auto repair business. And so we probably have a little bit of that in our blood. And I knew I wanted to do something on my own. I didn't want to work for someone anymore. And I was looking for the right industry. And a friend of mine went to a group interview in the insurance industry selling health insurance products. And she invited me to go along with her because she was nervous. And I said, sure, I'll go with you. And then I sat through the presentation and I'm like, oh, this is the thing I've been looking for. It's a way that I can build a business where we get to genuinely help people. Go home at night, we sleep good because we're bringing a good service to people, helping them understand difficult insurance products, but it also has renewable income, so you can work away at it for years and years and years and, build real wealth. So I started off in 2004, I think is when I got my license, and then built the business in 2005 and had a couple partners in the beginning that it didn't work out with. So I bought first out one and then the other. And I called up my brother because he was selling mortgages in Detroit, Michigan, which is where we're from originally, and was burnt out working 90 hours a week, cold calling from the white pages. And I said, you really should come do this with me. You have the finance and management major. I'm a communications, journalism, English. We can combine my advertising and marketing skills with your business skills. And I really think we could build this great little agency, and we can hire a couple of administrative people while we do the sales. And, we could make several $100,000s a year doing this. And he was like, well, I'll come down there, but we're going to add a few zeros to the back of that number that you just said. And I was like, well, I don't want to get really big. I don't want to manage this big agency. He's like, nope, I'll do that part. We'll divide up the tasks. And I know we can build a really big thing. So he was really the driving force in the beginning behind building the type of agency that we've turned into today. But what happened early on, and this may happen to a lot of agents out there, is I was running appointments, and you can only run so many appointments a day. Mm-hmm. And there were a few times where I ran appointments to some scary areas where I felt a little concerned about being in the neighborhoods that I was in, or, I was really lucky to meet only really nice people. But there was a few times where I felt scared, and I went to it was an agent meeting. I think it was Unicare back in the days when they used to sell MedSup and MSA products here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And I was in this room with all these old-timer agents. And I think, I want to say that it was Trice Battle that was teaching this. Trice has been in the industry for a long time, a good National Association of Health Underwriters member. And he was telling how when you're running appointments, and I said, could we just do this by phone? Because I feel like, my parents, they're boomers, and they've been using the internet, and we could probably sell this by phone. And literally got laughed out of the room. Not by the instructor, but by the other agents. Not a single one of them agreed that I could do this by phone and email, or that we could work with people online. And that really fired me up. I'm like, well, fine, I'll just go do this and show them that we can do it online.
I'll show
And
you.
so, yeah, we just thought, well, we'll do this. And the big thing that was really driving that, not beyond just the trying to scale the business, but one of the things I really noticed is I would sometimes come out of appointments, and this started before my brother even joined me in the agency, and I would have 3 or 4 messages from beneficiaries that I had already written, and they were needing help with things, and I was in an appointment working with a new person, gaining a new sale, and I hated that. I hated that our clients would be getting anyone on the phone like that, a voicemail when they're needing help. And I wanted to create a system that we could grow where they would call in and get a live person, either Dave or myself, and then later our staff, and they would have someone to help them with their problems right away, and they wouldn't be waiting on a call back. And so that's how the Medicare beneficiary part really took off. But before we even did that, we were involved in the group health industry. I cold called businesses for 2 years, knocking on their front door saying, hey, I'm an agent here. When your health insurance comes around for a renewal, give me a call. I'd love to quote it. It was a very girl next door kind of approach, and Dave manned the phones. And that is one way that we were able to get money and cash into the business more quickly, so that when we discovered individual health insurance and Medicare insurance, we could grow those portions of the business a lot more quickly. And probably, as you know, money is faster than time. If you have money to invest in the business up front, you will be able to grow the business much more quickly. But we didn't really have that. And I had quit my job and moved on over to working a little bit of part-time hours for my former employer while trying to launch this business. And one of the things that was really important to us right from the beginning was not to have any debt. We never wanted debt. My parents are anti-debt. We're anti-debt. So we didn't take any loans or investors or anything. We did it all by just sweat equity. And that was what was necessary to get the commissions coming in, was to do group and individual business, until we discovered that we really loved the Medicare piece and could grow it from there. So if you're somebody out there listening and you don't have money to invest and buy the leads and do the things that are going to help you grow more quickly, if you put in enough time, like we have 15 years, eventually you can be an agency just like we are.
Well, I love it. I love it. And I think it makes a lot of sense. You know, like we work with a lot of newer agents coming into the business, and I always tell them that if you don't have the money to put up to invest into your business, you can always have time that you can put up.
You bet.
And I think that's really insightful. Danielle, let me transition over to this in terms of scaling. Let's say there's an agency owner that might be listening to this that maybe, you know, is, I don't know, maybe they broke through 6 figures. Maybe they're pulling in $100,000 a year or $200,000 a year, but they're looking to kind of make that jump to get into the next level there. You know, maybe crack into the 8-figure mark a little bit. You guys have done an awesome job scaling your guys' business. Talk to some agents that might be listening on what it truly takes to build a company the size of which you guys did. I know that you said that you and your brother worked together. Talk a little bit about that.
So, you know, having someone you trust that has the same work ethic as you and being able to divide and conquer is awesome. You have to be really careful about who you partner with. As I mentioned, I had 2 partners up front, and then we had very different work ethics, and they didn't want to invest the money back into the business. Mm-hmm. And we knew that if we grew an agency like what we dreamed of, that agency is going to be really attractive to buyers someday if we have huge salaries, which are profit off the top, that they can bring into their business. There's no debt. We've slowly evolved to doing almost all as earned commissions. These are things that you want to think about early in your business, so that when you reach the point someday where a lot of agents get to where they want to sell their business for millions of dollars, you have a very attractive agency that you can sell because you have cash heavy and you don't have debt. And I really feel like putting in those blood, sweat, and tears in the early years paid off. So you should don't be down on yourself if you don't have tons of money to invest in the business right up front, because certainly we didn't. And I think the way that we've now positioned ourselves in the market is great, because we can afford the things that we want to do now to grow the business, and we can make ourselves very attractive to buyers, although we have no intention of selling anytime soon because we love what we do. And also, I see a lot of this people worrying about imposter syndrome. And
Mhm.
I am no expert in anything business. I have, like I said, an English degree. I didn't know anything about marketing when I started the kind of marketing that we do now. But what I do have is an educational mindset. I'm a voracious reader and I love to learn, and I will buy tons of information products and lots of books to learn something that I'm interested in. Um, really a nerd. In my personal life as well as in business, I tend to find a topic and I'll go all in on it. And so when I started trying to learn about marketing, I stumbled across an interview by Amy Porterfield, who has a great podcast about online marketing. And then I downloaded every episode she'd ever published, and I binged listened to them on my way to conferences and on my way to and from work. And so I just really, really studied sales and growth and marketing. And so I learned that on the fly. I didn't have a background in it, and so anyone could go out and find a couple of great podcasts. When we were starting, there was no Facebook. We didn't have this. You couldn't join a group on Facebook and have access to other agents like you offer to people, Christian, with your Facebook group. There weren't even any books. I think I bought a book from the $1 Million Roundtable on life insurance producers and how they had become $1 million producers. So I couldn't even find anything in the health insurance industry. So I
Wow.
had to learn marketing in other industries, because what was going on in Medicare was really nothing. This is kind of almost before Advantage plans even became really popular.
Yeah.
So one of the things that I think is really important early on then is to do that, invest in your own learning, learn how to do those things yourself, have a singular focus. Something that has helped us scale is we don't have shiny object syndrome. We sit down all the time and have major discussions about, are we going to take this branch? Like a few years ago, we had a meeting, my brother and I, and our top sales director, about whether we were going to branch into the other end of the business and build a downline. And I knew that with everything I'd learned about online marketing, I could probably get tons of agents interested in buying products that we could sell and teaching them how to sell Medicare and becoming a downline.
Yeah.
And at the end of the conversation, we just decided no, because we're really good at the thing we're already doing, and we want to niche down. And so we dropped the individual health insurance, we dropped disability, long-term care. We don't write annuities. We picked our avenue and we really focused on it, and we had patience. So I remember when writing 40 apps a month was huge, and we would work until 11:30 during the AEP, and we'd be closing up the business in the dark. And we combined that patience with an opportunity and a willingness to fail. And we have failed at so many things along the way. We have failed at mailers. We tried this joint mailer with a carrier one time, and it was a disaster. We've invested thousands in radio advertising once, and it was a total flop. Not a single lead that came in from that. And along the way, those failures have just helped us to learn. And one other thing that I think really helps you to grow your business is to find other peers in the industry and learn from them. So very early on, probably 2006 or 7, I found the National Association of Health Underwriters, which is a terrific organization, and I joined a local chapter. And I'm a complete introvert. I know you may see my videos and you think that I'm an extroverted person, but I'm not. It takes a lot out of me. But I went in there on my very first meeting and I introduced myself to the president of the chapter, and I said, are there any positions on the board that you would need any help with? And if you know anything about industries or associations like this, whenever a board position isn't filled, the president is doing that job in addition to his or her own job. And right away, he was like, absolutely, we need a membership person. So like on my second meeting, I was in membership.
Wow.
And over the years, I took that all the way. And eventually I was the president of that 200-person chapter. And I've served like 7 years on the board. And I went to the Texas Association conferences, and I went to the local meetings, and I became a CE instructor. And all those agents in those groups are mostly group health insurance agents. So I established myself as a Medicare expert with that group of people, and that has resulted in literally hundreds and hundreds of referrals for our agency. I
Wow.
still have group agents all over, not just Texas, but in other states, because the people that I've gotten to know in Texas have referred us to group agents they know in other states. And so if you aren't involved in your local association, go get involved. You might find that you're the only Medicare person in that group, and all those group health agents want nothing to do with Medicare. They just want to refer it out. And within that group of people, I found a little subset of agents who did do some Medicare, and we would do a happy hour once a quarter so we could, go tell our battle stories and not bore our spouses with all of our insurance talk at dinner. We take all that to our meetings, and having that little happy hour group really, it can prop you up a lot in the beginning during those hard years where sometimes you wonder if it's really worth it. And lastly, I would say to have some short and long-term goals. So maybe your short-term goal is to build a nice living and be able to support your family, but you want to have a long-term goal as well. So for my brother and I, we want to buy a ranch in Jackson Hole, and we want to work for a couple months a year up in Wyoming where they have seasons. And so if you have those kind of goals for yourself and you set them along the way, but you also kind of have a big goal at the end, I find that really keeps you hungry and persistent. And that's, of course, as you know, what it takes.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. It's something to keep you excited, get you out of bed in the morning,
Yeah.
a goal that's maybe something that you might, that goal seems plenty achievable for you guys, but maybe have a goal that's so big that it might take you your whole life to get there, or something like that. But so I think this is a good transition into the next question I had for you about starting from scratch. So when you guys started, like you said, it was a totally different world, right? In terms of the internet, social media, the Medicare industry is probably at a much different place than it was back then. If you had to start from scratch today, let's say, we snapped our fingers and everything with Boomer just disappeared, knock on wood, and you had to start from scratch. What would you do differently today with everything we have available that you might have not have done at the beginning?
I love that question because now that we are 15 years in, I look back so fondly on those early years when we made beans. I think the agency earned like $13,000 my first year. We were at poverty level, but it was before things that you have today that could make things so much easier. But I really look back fondly on those days, and they were when you were hungry and learning, and it was so exciting to build everything. Today, I would seriously, we didn't have Facebook groups, like I said. We didn't have a way to market. Facebook is an incredible way to market to people. Social media is a huge way for you to reach and build trust. So I don't think today you would need to do what we did, like, okay, we'll sell group and individual health insurance and we'll knock on doors to try to get some commissions rolling in so that someday we could be legit and then stumble into Medicare and decide to niche down on that. I remember where I was sitting in my car. It was on Davis Boulevard, and I can remember getting out. It was a long day, and I had a couple appointments. They didn't go well. And I just thought, when this agency is bringing in $500 a month, we will be legit. We will be so legit. I remember where I was at when I thought that. And of course, now we find that really funny. But I would start off with online marketing. That's obviously the best place to go. We purchase leads, shared leads in the beginning. And now, of course, we generate all of our own leads. But that was really good training for us to be on the phone, calling a lead that's going to get 8 to 10 other calls. You had to differentiate yourself. You have to learn a sales style that works for you. My brother and I have very different sales styles, and both of us were tremendous producers for years before we brought anyone else into the business. So I would get yourself some leads and go and call on them and work from home, and don't run appointments, because that's just a slower way to build your business. You should invest in your own learning. You should go and learn everything you need to about a subject that you want to implement in your business, so that later when you bring other people in, you know what they're talking about when they're running that thing for you. So that's really important. Another thing that took us a while to learn, but is so important now, is about building a relationship with your upline. We have fired multiple FMOs over the years because people will lie to you, or they don't provide good support on the things that you needed. And so we really learned to do most of that ourselves, and we don't rely a lot on our upline. But now today, we work with two main FMOs, and we have incredible relationships with them. In fact, one of them is Senior Security Benefits, and Galen Hendricks, she and her husband and son and daughter and their kids were just over at our house last night for dinner. We had a little happy hour get together in the age of COVID. We weren't going out to restaurants or whatever, but they were here for hours, and that allows Galen and I to talk business, which we love to do. But they're also friends, like personal friends in the industry. And that's super important. I mentioned earlier about establishing a group of agents that you can really share your war stories with. Mm-hmm. For us, I found some of those independent producers through the association early on, but later in this industry now, all the competitors that are, at our level, we know all those people. We've been on trips with them through the carriers, and we have great relationships with them. My brother's favorite insurance agent in the world is Robert Bache. He's the really funny, great,
Medicare
amazing.
Bob.
Yep, we love Medicare Bob, Jagger and David down at Medicare FAQ, Richard Cantu. These are all people that when you get to the next level of your agency, go out and find other agents who are at that level. So in the beginning, I made friends with agents that were independent and they're selling just like we were. And then as we evolved, we have gone out and we have befriended even our own competitors, agencies that are at our same level. So maybe you have a 4-person agency or an 8-person agency, or maybe it's just you. Find other agents at that same level, because you're going to be really in the thick of it with them, and you're able to learn from each other at that stage of the business. And that's important. And then later, when you have a big agency, if that's what you aspire to, you can also laugh with these people. Like, we have the best stories about some of the things that we tell each other. We love being able to tell each other, hey, one of your agents stole one of my leads today. Damn you. I would lose my mind without these people, because there's things on the back end of growing an agency this big, like human resources. And if you want to have more than 50 people, you're going to get into the realm of FMLA for your employees, and you need to have a payroll system. And so you can call your friends and say, hey, what payroll system are you guys using? You want to have those friendships along the way with your competitors or people in that same space that are at the level you're at, so that you can learn from each other and also laugh with each other and make it fun.
Well, I think that's so true. I mean, so the last probably 6 to 8 months or so, I've gotten to know Galen a little bit, and I just love her. She's one of my favorite people. She's the best.
Yeah, truly.
So I live in Utah, and it was right before COVID, about maybe a month or two before everything started to shut down, Aetna flew her out here to do a presentation for the local agents here.
Good.
And I saw she was in town. I was like, we have to have breakfast, something. I'm like, I want to see you. And so, I go out and, we sit down, we're talking, and all of the local Aetna people, all of them know me, of course. And they're walking up, they see me sitting with Galen. They're like, oh, Christian, we didn't know you were coming. And, it was a great time to get to meet her for the first time in person. And I can't say enough great things about her. And I think that's so true. Learning from other people that, might be doing something better than you're doing. I think that's been a huge change that we've made in the last couple of years in our business. And I can only speak for, how much it's helped me in our growth.
Yeah, you can consult with them when you have a question or a problem. Like, I love being able to call them and we've had this relationship of trust to say, hey, and we can ask Galen these questions about the carriers, and she knows them all personally, all the executives. And now, of course, we do too. But she can tell you things about the industry that you would never know on your own, because she's such a dominating force within the Medicare industry. Mm. And so, I wish we had known her right up front. I met Taylor, her business partner, was actually my friend first, but I met him through the Fort Worth chapter of Health Underwriters. He came up to me and was like, hey, let's get to know each other. This is what I do. I'd love to get your business sometime. And I'm like, oh, nope, you don't want to deal with my brother. I guarantee you don't want our business. And my brother has his own reputation in the industry. But he kept trying, and eventually I introduced him to my brother, and Taylor's got a really funny story about how that went down, but they were very trustworthy people. And so we have a couple of FMOs like that, and we just work with them and we concentrate our business with those people, because we have that trust established, and they're going to help you. If you are honest about where you're going, they can sometimes help you avoid some big pitfalls. And sometimes they're going to suggest things that really aren't for you, and that's fine. But establishing them and finding out the trustworthy ones up front is really important, because they are going to be someone that you're going to have to deal with as you grow that agency. And you want to be able to rely on their opinion and advice, and not worry if they're telling you something that's untrue, or if they're stabbing you in the back on the commission level that you're at. You need those relationships. So ask around, ask some of the agents that you know that seem to be successful, who their uplines are, what are the ones they like the best, who do they trust, who's the most helpful. And that's a great way to, start in on scaling your business.
Yeah, I think that's great advice. Let's shift gears over to another question I had for you in terms of, building an agency in the 2020s. You guys have a tremendous online brand with your YouTube channel. I know your website, your blog, everything you guys are doing is just tremendously impactful for the industry as a whole, I would say. Talk about having an online presence and how important it might be, because maybe 20 years ago or 25 years ago, obviously the internet wasn't a factor for insurance agencies. It didn't matter, but today it really is. Can you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I think we're kind of lucky that we had the foresight years back to see where the industry was going. And we were thinking, one of the things I said at that Unicare meeting was, well, the auto insurance do it, the homeowners insurance do it. They're all buying that stuff online. Why wouldn't they buy health insurance online? And so much has changed. Back then you had all these, people that were turning 65 that were used to doing the kitchen table sale. And some of them still want that today. And you can build a good business doing that. But I have a lot of them they don't have any desire at all to see you in person. They want to work with you by phone just like they do everything else. So a lot has changed over the years, but your online presence today, where the industry stands today, is just critical. You're going to find fewer and fewer seniors that are going to want to work with you in person like that. And even more so after this whole coronavirus thing and pandemics, they may not have want to transition to that, but those of them that used to maybe want to do a sale like that probably now are considering doing more online, so they don't go out and expose themselves to whatever virus is out there running around.
Right.
So you have to build a comprehensive marketing strategy. And one thing I would say is find a brand, a unique brand, a very personal brand that you can get behind that's different than what you see out there. So, when we started building our business, eHealth was a huge player. They had that in the plan prescriber website, I think. And I didn't go out and say, okay, well, I'm going to be eMedicare, or I'm going to be, e-insurance. I purposely, we chose a different slogan, a different business name, because we wanted to differentiate ourselves from our competitor. And I could have a marketing meeting with my team, and I bet you we could, in 20 minutes, come up with 5 ideas for that. So one thing you don't want to do is to copy something from a competitor that is already working, because if they're further along than you, you're always going to be trailing to catch them. And also, some of us, as big as like we are today, we have copyrights and trademarks, and we'll aggressively protect our brand against copycats. But, like we mentioned Medicare Bob earlier, don't go become Medicare Joe, because he's already cornered that market, and that's his unique brand. That, Medicare Bob, he comes online and speaks right from the cuff and tells you what he thinks about what's going on with Medicare. And why would you ever want to be Medicare Joe or Medicare Sue? Because everyone will always be able to see that someone else conquered that first. So you need to come up with how you can build your place in the market, the name of your agency, and a brand that you can get behind, and that you want to make it unique to yourself so that you can stand out from all of the other people out there. And don't think to yourself that just because there's thousands of other Medicare agents or agencies out there that you can't find that unique angle. You certainly can. You don't want to be out there copying someone else's website and then having them defend that or report you to DMCA takedown. But you also don't want to be voting in front of Google that somebody you're competing with is actually a better authority than you. That's what you do when you copy their content or how they market. So some of the marketing is going to be the same, right? You should have an online presence. You should have a website. You should have a YouTube channel. You should have Facebook, Instagram. But maybe one of those over the other is really where you build yourself. Maybe you become the Medicare Instagram queen or king, and that's your shtick. Or you market online with a really cool brand name that you've come up that is going to appeal to people that have Medicare, but that is something different than anyone else. Maybe you and your partner do YouTube videos together. I'm trying to think of, I don't see a lot of Medicare agents out there. They're usually one talking head like me on their YouTube channel. Maybe you and a partner do back and forth. You should come up with something that's going to be different. But you have to have a presence that you can grow and get behind. So spend some time thinking about what that is. What presence could you build that you would be proud of, that is uniquely you, that no one can ever claim that you plagiarized or copied, and you stand out in your own way? That is really how you can get past the imposter syndrome. Even if you're a small guy, you could certainly grow something that makes a lot of sense and that people trust you, if you differentiate yourself from your competitors.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I think that's really, really insightful because, like you said, I mean, I think the thing that jumped out to me the most on that was the Google thing. I mean, if I'm trying to become Medicare Chris or Medicare Christian or something like that, I mean, that's just going to help Robert Bache, you know, in
He'll thank you for it. Yeah.
Talk a little bit about where you see the industry going in the next 10 years, maybe in the next decade.
Yeah, a lot of talk about this within the agent groups. There is some danger, right, that we'll end up with a socialized medicine system.
Right.
We've talked endlessly about this, but there are some things that make me really doubt that could ever happen. First of all, we've just done a $2.2 trillion stimulus bill, so I seriously doubt the nation can afford to do Medicare for all now.
Right.
Look, we could barely afford Medicare for the people that are on it today. We're gonna bankrupt that system, I think, in 2034, and that'll actually come sooner now because of the way that they rated the budget for all of the COVID stuff. So if we can't even afford to provide health insurance to our seniors that they don't pay for now, where they have to pay into the system on their Medicare Part B and D, we're not going to be able to afford that for 300 million people or whatever the number is of people in the US, and everybody beyond that, and all be free. So I subscribe to the idea that I just don't see socialized medicine, at least not within the next 10 years. But if you build a Medicare industry, and that did happen, let's say it did happen. Remember when the Affordable Care Act came out, there were several years where they phased that in. You will have time to change direction. You can sell life insurance, or you could go into P&C, or you could do something else. You'll already have the structure of a business built out that you can follow. So you can protect yourself a little bit by being in the insurance industry in general, because insurance has been around for hundreds of years and is really important in every market that it serves. Also, in this industry, I do think the trend will continue toward Medicare Advantage, because we see so many people, they just retire with not a lot in their savings. It's unfortunate, but living today is expensive. If you have a couple of kids and you put them through college, sometimes you put your own retirement on the back burner.
Right.
And you might find that 65 sneaks up on you and you just didn't have an opportunity to save as much money as you had hoped. And so that trend toward Medicare Advantage will continue. You have the insurance carriers making a lot of money, and so they market those products to agents, and then the agents turn around, and it's very easy to market a product that costs nothing to the consumer. And that's why we've seen this trend with the Medicare Advantage, and I actually do think that will continue. I think it'll continue to gain ground against Medigap. But if you're selling both of those products, then you're going to be in a great position. And remember, there's big agencies out there, big companies buying up each other in this space. So, you have eHealth that bought Go Medigap, and they paid a lot of money to do that.
Yeah.
If they really thought that socialized medicine somebody was going to swipe a pen and Medicare supplements would go away tomorrow, they certainly wouldn't be investing $50 million to purchase amazing, even an agency as amazing as what Cantu built.
Mm-hmm.
And so other companies are out there doing that right now. We get calls every day from people wanting to explore whether we're ready to sell. And those companies wouldn't be so interested if they thought that this industry would go away. So I think you can move forward with a business that you build without being too worried about that. You definitely have to be able to sell Medicare Advantage, though, because those products are definitely going to continue trending upward, in my opinion.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I agree. I agree. I mean, I think that we're in a great opportunity,
Yeah.
to build. And I think I heard, I can't remember who heard say this, but I believe it was Justin Brock. He said that the people that kind of take a market share in the industry now, today, in the next 5 to 10 years, are going to be the ones that survive the next 15 to 20 years or something like that. But I agree with you. I just think, I mean, not to get political or anything, but I don't think the socialized medicine thing has any ground. I think it's ridiculous.
Yeah, but a lot of agents so worried about that. They don't want to
Yeah.
invest in growing because they're so concerned about that. And it's definitely not going to happen if Trump gets reelected. And even if Joe Biden gets elected, he has said his plan would be Medicare at 60.
Right.
So that would be actually great for our business, right? We'd be in a good
Yeah.
position. Yeah. And so at least for the next foreseeable 5 to 10 years, you could totally build a business here. But maybe you want to think about building in some products, just like Galen sells her cancer products. And maybe you want to build in some products that can balance you out. Maybe you should learn to be a really good life insurance agent in case something happens down the road. But for right now, I think you can really have a good lucrative run with Medicare and Medicare Advantage the way it is.
Well, I agree. I had a really interesting question for you. Another question about new agents. So there's a lot of talk, especially in the groups, my group, other people's groups, about if agents are better off taking less commission to work for a great organization when they start out. And I think there's a real interesting discussion to be had there. There could be an agent, let's say, that is new in the business and they go work for a captive shop, but maybe it's a great captive shop, that is just a tremendous producer, and they go there to learn and to gain experience. Do you think agents are better off maybe not worrying as much about commissions, but working with a great organization at the beginning? Or are they better off just diving in on their own and getting their 100% street level contracts to start out and getting all their commission and just kind of figuring out as they go? Where do you fall on that argument?
A lot of it would depend on what your capital is to get started with. I know when I made the leap and quit my job, I negotiated a part-time job coming out of my last employer so that I could at least keep food on the table while I was building my business. That's one way to go about it. I sold my house and used some of the money that was in the investment. So there's some things, maybe you have some capital going in, and if the freedom of owning your own business really appeals to you, going in right like that from the beginning is certainly doable. But I know a lot of great agents who have zero interest in owning their own business. Many of these are through the local association, and they have great jobs. Many of them earn, $100,000 or more per year, and they have the security of group health insurance through that employer, and they don't want to ever grow a business. You might go that route and then later change your mind and decide to go and run your own agency. Several of the agents that I knew coming into the business, they're out there earning 6 figures, and we've surpassed them and are earning 7 long ago, even though I started off with much less than what they had. So I think sometimes that you have to recognize there's going to be a limit to how much you can make working for someone else, but you may not be so concerned about the other aspects. Most entrepreneurs, we want not only to make good money, but we want the freedom, right? To live our own lives, to have our own schedule. I'm recording here at home with you this morning. I've got a staff out there that's running things at my office while I do this. And if that kind of lifestyle really appeals to you, the freedom of that, then if you have the means to do it, to go independent right from the beginning, my hat's off to you. It's such a great ride. I hope you have a good journey. It's really fun. But I also think that you could learn a lot working for another company. And if that is going to be an easier transition for you, even if it means it's going to take you a little longer to grow the business that you want, there's certainly no shame in doing that. And you're going to meet some great people along the way. You might even find someone that could be a good business partner for you down the line. Your main thing would be to just don't get the shiny object syndrome, because I do know a lot of agents who work for one company and then they jump to another company and then they jump to another company and then they jump to another company. That's not going to serve you. So if you are going to take less commissions or a job with an actual agency somewhere, make sure it's someplace that you can put in 5 years, do the learning you need to do, and have the option to jump out. Because the ones who jump around, I think they get caught in a rat race there. They're always looking for something better. Like we say, right? One of the things we love to joke with our Medicare friends about is all the employees that complain about the leads, right? This agent's getting better leads than this one. Oh, okay. It's not the leads, it's you.
Yes.
So if you find yourself jumping around looking for something, you might be the problem. So sit down and evaluate, which one can you afford to begin with? But then what is your 5-year plan? And then map that out and follow your plan.
I think that's really smart. That's really insightful. Like, I have agents ask me all the time, they're like, what are the best leads? Like, that's like the first question somebody will have for me. I'm like, well, I don't even know how to answer that, because either, we do a lot of lead review videos on this channel where I'll just buy a batch of leads from some random vendor and I'll work them myself and I'll do a review for people.
Yeah.
And they go through and they'll see my results and they'll be like, you just seem to kill it with every batch. I'm like, it's because I know what I'm doing.
Yes.
Because I'm a good salesperson. I'm like, and they're like, well, I bought the same batch of leads with the same company and I got nothing. I'm like, it's not the leads.
No, it's definitely not.
Not the leads. I'm like, now do I want to go out and buy leads from vendors all day long? No, like you, I want to make my own. But I think that a good agent and a good salesperson, you can give them almost any lead. You'd be a shared lead, like you said, and they could get something out of it.
Yeah, you can. I mean, if you need to eat, and that's what we needed to do at the time that we were buying shared leads, then you will learn how to sell and you will sell it very well. And in fact, I was just talking with Jagger about this recently, because we have agents, you can bring an agent in and they're in your office and they're producing 60 plus apps a month and they're awesome. And you've got an agent getting exactly the same leads and they're writing 25. And they're complaining that the other one is getting better leads. Well, you know what? If a lead comes into our website from Tennessee, I don't know if it's better than the one in Kansas. I don't have time to know that,
Right.
It's just ridiculous. And those people out there, you have to know, especially if you have a good online presence, they might Google something and you're the website that comes up and they put their information in. They think you're emailing them quotes or something and they forget all about you by the time you call them. And so you think that's a bad lead. Well, no, you just need to remind them that they put their information in. And if they say, well, I don't remember doing that, well, then you just switch tactics. Well, hey, now that I've got you on the phone, are you looking at Medicare's and can I answer any questions for you? So you can make any type of lead work out for you. And even if I do still know agents that do mailers and make them work.
Sure.
So if you're having trouble there, what you need to invest in is your own sales ability. Go out and take a couple of online courses or read some books to become an amazing salesperson. I think you have a course that you offer, Christian.
Mm-hmm.
Those type of resources were not around when I started my agency, and those would be so worthwhile for an agent to spend a little bit of money investing in their own sales ability up front, because you're going to put those policies on the books and they're going to pay renewals forever. And so every month that goes by, you're getting closer and closer to where you can make ends meet on what you're bringing in with your agency. And then you can decide, do I want to work 15 hours a week and just work my renewals and go golf the rest of the time? Or do I want to take it to the next level and start hiring employees? If you invest in the sales ability, you'll have the opportunity to make that choice.
Well, I think that makes a lot of sense. And I agree completely. I mean, some of the best things I've ever learned from my business, I got out of a $20 book,
True.
I mean, it's crazy. Yep. Last question I had for you was, I thought this would be kind of a fun question for the audience. So this channel has basically been about me and documenting my journey of growing our agency from a multi-6-figure agency up into a 7-figure agency.
Okay.
if you had any tips that you could share with me on what I can do to kind of help get our agency there faster, what would tips you'd share with me?
So I would become an absolute expert in every aspect of the business that you're going to need when you get there. Marketing, web development, leads, human resources, sales, service, all of it. I think one of the best things that we've done in terms of scaling, I know this for me, like let's take the YouTube as an example.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't hire an expert. I watched about 700 hours of YouTube videos.
Wow.
Which ones did I like? Which ones did I not like? Who are the people that were most interesting me? Then I went and looked about video cameras, watched tons of hours about cameras, learned all about the differences, DSLR versus other types of cameras, and narrowed down until I figured out the camera that I wanted to buy. And then I went and watched a bunch of videos about how to video edit, and I learned to edit my own videos. So the very early videos, the ones that really suck compared to what we produce today, they're still up there. Go take a look at them. You'll see that I had no idea what I was doing. But I learned that, and I learned it well, and then I handed it off to someone that I hired in for that. So the videos today are much more polished because I have a team working behind me that helps me come up with ideas and topics and scripts and things like that. But I know how to do that. So if she quits tomorrow, I can edit my own video. I don't need to have that employee. I know enough to be dangerous. And the same with everything else that we've done. Every other type of marketing that we've done, I have learned about it. I had an SEO background coming in because I, many years ago, helped an ex-boyfriend of mine with growing a business. And back in those days, SEO was very simple. You could put a few keywords in there that you stuffed into your text, and you could easily be number one. It's gotten much more competitive over the years. But I have literally invested hundreds of hours in my own education on that well before we hired an SEO person to handle it for our agency. And that is huge in terms of growing that big business, because you're going to have people that quit along the way. You have to know how to step in and manage that while you're looking for a new employee. Trying to think of what else. Okay, so to follow up on that, then once you have hired that person, you start to clone yourself in each of those areas. So when you know how to do that really well, and then you go and clone yourself, and you're looking for the person that's going to do this job just the way that you have done it, that's really going to serve you a lot. So think about all the things that you have done in that position to make it successful, and then write a job ad for all of those things that that person will need. And then you go out and find your mini-me. Maybe somebody who's a little better than you. Maybe find someone that's watched 900 hours on how to do it. Bring in a person that's a little bit better than where you were at. That's a good way to do it. And another thing that I find really helpful in being on top of the online space is a lot of your listeners may not know about this, but there's an agent named Ron Iverson. I think he's out of Washington, and he produces a newsletter. And it comes out a couple times a week, and it's all about Medicare. And I learned so much from that newsletter. I learned things that are happening that I wouldn't have learned for months if I didn't invest in that newsletter. And I think it's like $100 a year.
Yeah.
So
I'm
Google Ron Iverson, Guarding Your Gold. Do you subscribe to his newsletter?
So I personally don't, but there's an agent that works with us that does, and he swears by him. And then every so often, he'll forward an email of his over to us. He's like, you got to read this, and we'll look through it a little bit. So that's how I know him. But I know it's great.
Yeah. That's a really good one for growing your agency, because I learned stuff that's going to be happening way before I would have known it, because his research is really good. I forward those to my team all the time. Like, hey, this is coming down the pike. Let's have a meeting about this. Great guy, has run a very successful agency with, 8,000 to 10,000 policies or something for a long time. And so you can learn a lot from him as well.
Well, that's great. That's great. Well, thank you so much for taking the time and sharing all this info. I mean, I think there's so much that an agent can take from this video and kind of apply it to their business. Is there anything that you wanted to plug while you're on here, Danielle?
I don't think so. If you
Okay.
happen to be a
Yeah.
Medicare beneficiary watching, I'll
Yeah.
plug your agency, Christian. You have a great agency, and I
Thank
know
you.
that you can provide good services for people out there. And if you're an agent, join some Facebook groups. Get in Christian's group. If that's a great way to find me, if you want to ask a question. I get a lot of, we get letters from agents. I have tons of them reaching out on LinkedIn. I've had people call over the years, and I used to try to take all of those calls and help, but our agency's grown and it's so busy.
Yeah.
But I love being part of the Facebook group like yours because people occasionally tag me with a question, and I love to weigh in on stuff like that. So if anybody has a question, that's a great place. Come to the Six Figure Medicare Agents, and you'll find me in there from time to time.
Hey, well, that's great, and we love having you. I mean, I always tell people there's some real killers in those in that group. People that
It's
are
a good group. You put
they're
out a lot
way
of great
above me.
info.
People that are way above me.
But you're on your way and you're doing great.
Well, thank you. And thank you so much for taking the time and all the insight and the knowledge and the information. And I can't thank you enough. Thank you so much. And I know you're so busy, and I don't take that for granted.
Totally fun. I enjoyed it. Thanks.
Everybody, thanks so much for taking the time to watch. Make sure you're following everything that Boomer does. Subscribe to their YouTube channel. Even those for beneficiaries, you can learn a lot if you're a new agent learning about Medicare. And also, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, comment on what you'd like to see me talk about on future videos, and subscribe for future six-figure Medicare agent content. Take care.